A young woman named Clara stood behind the worn wooden counter of Miller's Grocery, a small neighborhood store that had seen better days. The place smelled faintly of flour, coffee, and the faint sweetness of ripe fruit. Sunlight streamed through the dusty glass window, painting soft patterns on the tiled floor. It was nearing closing time. The few remaining customers had already left, leaving Clara to stack the last of the canned goods and balance the register. She wiped her brow, brushing away a loose strand of hair from her tired face. Working double shifts wasn't easy, but she needed every bit of income she could get. Her mother's medical bills had been piling up, and Clara refused to let them go unpaid. Just as she reached for the closed sign, the bell above the door jingled softly. Clara looked up to see an elderly man step inside. He moved slowly, his back slightly bent, and his clothes hung loosely on his frail frame. His shoes were scuffed, and his coat, several sizes too large, was patched at the elbows. In his trembling hand, he held a single, crumpled dollar bill. "Good evening, sir," Clara said kindly, her voice gentle. "Can I help you find something?" The man smiled weakly, his lips dry and cracked. "Ma'am," he said, his voice shaking, I just need a loaf of bread. It's all I can afford." Clara's heart tightened. She looked down at the dollar in his hand and then at the shelves behind her. The cheapest loaf cost nearly $3. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, the store manager, Mr. Larson, a heavy-set man with a permanent frown, appeared from the back office. "What's this?" Larson barked, eyeing the man suspiciously. "You think you can buy bread with that pocket change? $1 won't even cover half." The old man's shoulders sagged. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I haven't eaten in 2 days." Larson snorted. "Then maybe you should have planned better," he muttered coldly. "Now move along. We're closing." The man turned toward the door, his face etched with quiet humiliation. But before he could leave, Clara called out softly, "Wait!" She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out her small wallet, and thumbed through the few bills she had left. Money she had saved for her bus fare and her mother's medicine. Her hand trembled slightly, but her decision was firm. She added a few bills to the man's dollar and placed them on the counter. "I'll take care of it," she said. Mr. Larson frowned. "Clara, this isn't a charity." "I know," she interrupted, her tone calm but steady. "But it's the right thing to do." She picked up a fresh loaf of bread, wrapped it carefully, and placed it in the man's hands. "Please, sir," she said with a warm smile. "Eat well tonight." For a moment, the old man stood frozen, his eyes filled with tears, his lips quivering as he tried to speak. "God bless you, child," he whispered, clutching the bread like a treasure. "You don't know what this means to me." Clara smiled softly. "Take care of yourself, sir." He nodded gratefully and shuffled out of the store, the bell above the door jingling behind him. Mr. Larson muttered something under his breath about foolish kindness, but Clara didn't care. Deep down, she felt a quiet warmth in her chest, something money couldn't buy. Years passed. Seasons changed. The small grocery store eventually shut down, replaced by a chain supermarket. Clara, determined to build something of her own, had worked tirelessly, saving every penny, studying business at night, and dreaming of a place that felt like home. Now in her 30s, she stood inside her own small cafe, Clara's Corner, nestled on a quiet street corner. The walls were painted a soothing cream, the air filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries. Locals loved the cozy atmosphere, and Clara took pride in knowing most of her customers by name. But lately, times had been tough. The economy had taken a downturn, and new cafes had opened nearby. Customers grew fewer each week. Rent and supplier bills stacked up on her counter, and despite her best efforts, the numbers didn't add up. One afternoon, Clara sat at a table near the window, staring blankly at an unopened letter from the bank. She already knew what it said. They were foreclosing. Her dream, the one she'd built from years of hard work, was slipping away. The bell above the door chimed softly, pulling her from her thoughts. She looked up, expecting a customer, but instead saw a sleek black car parked outside. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out and walked in. His shoes gleamed, and his posture radiated quiet confidence. "Good afternoon," Clara said, forcing a polite smile. "How can I help you?" The man studied her face for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You may not remember me," he said gently. Clara blinked, puzzled. "I'm sorry, should I?" He smiled faintly and reached into his pocket, pulling out a simple business card. "Years ago," he began, "you gave a hungry old man a loaf of bread when no one else would." Clara's breath caught. She looked at him closely. His hair was now silver at the temples, but his eyes, those same deep, weary eyes she had once seen behind that counter, were unmistakable. I can't believe it, she whispered. That was you? The man nodded. That man was me. I'd lost everything back then. My job, my home, even my hope. But your kindness reminded me that goodness still existed. It gave me strength to start over. His voice grew softer. I rebuilt my life, started my own company, and I never forgot what you did for me. He placed a white envelope on the table between them. Clara hesitated, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside was a signed check, the amount written in neat, steady handwriting. It was more than enough to save her cafe. Her eyes widened. I don't understand, she said, tears welling. Why would you do this for me? The man's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Clara saw the humble, hungry soul she'd once helped. Because kindness, he said quietly, always comes back in circle. You fed me when I had nothing. Today, I get to return that gift. Clara pressed a hand to her mouth, tears streaming freely now. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea how much this means. He smiled warmly. I do, he said simply. They stood in silence for a moment, the same silence that had once filled that old grocery store. But now it carried gratitude, not hunger. As he turned to leave, the sunlight broke through the clouds, bathing the cafe in golden light. Clara looked around her small shop, the same walls she had once feared would crumble, and felt her heart swell. She whispered softly to herself, kindness always finds its way back. And from that day on, a new sign hung above her counter. It read, a little kindness can change everything. Drop a heart if you believe the good you do always finds its way back.